Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. So, as you guys know, especially if you guys watched my post-game video for Iowa versus Iowa State, I was very much struggling with the loss as far as having it within me to continue as with the YouTube channel. I, of course, as I've gotten older, have gotten better at uh, going through Iowa losses. It doesn't hit me in the same way that it used to. The way that this loss is even a day later has hit me is more just unfathomable disappointment. Uh, Unnecessary disappointment, really. But the comments actually really did uplift me. The old saying of misery loves company perhaps may be true, but reading the comments, I think a lot of people really did, and I appreciate this, really did welcome my honesty and transparentness. And I've told you guys that from day one, that me doing this, I don't have any affiliations, anybody that I'm beholden to besides myself with regards to this YouTube channel. And even when I have, there's never been any stipulation of what can be said and what can't be said. So I'm going to say exactly what I think, totally unfiltered with regards to the Iowa Hawkeyes. And even a day later, that loss to Iowa State was inexcusable. And yes, it is hard to do this video because this game against Troy almost seems pointless. But I will say that shockingly, we have been here before, and Iowa has found a way to shock and awe and really salvage a football season. But, and there's a lot of buts here, that might be the problem. The problem is that Kirk Ferentz and his football program is always on the cusp of breaking through to that next level of elite status. And I made a Facebook post. I think I'm going to pull it up because I think I really said this well. So here it is. And really this encapsulates, and I absolutely see it crystal clear at this point, because for me, as somebody that does this, I analyze the talent that Iowa has and decide to move forward with the expectations that I have for the football season. I analyze the coaching staff and things like that. But the primary thing that I look at in setting the expectations is the talent level that the Iowa Hawkeyes have. And make no mistake, this Iowa team had a lot of, for lack of a better word, recruiting victories in having guys like Sebastian Castro, keeping guys like Xavier Wanpa and other high caliber players across the team. Jay Higgins kept them from either going to a different college football program, as we've seen in the past with guys like Justin Jacobs, or going to the NFL. And for those of you who think that Iowa has a lack of talent on the offense, I've showed you guys time and time again that that just is not true. Now, is it conceivable that once they get to Iowa, the offensive staff does not do a good enough job of developing them? That is certainly possible. But I set the expectations based off of the talent level of the Iowa Hawkeyes. And this Iowa team has the talent to be a border college football playoff, top 20, top 15 team. And that is the rub right there, is Iowa is always on the precipice of approaching that elite status. Now, early in Kirk Ferentz's tenure at Iowa, they hit that elite status. And a few times since, they have been able to hit that elite status, or close to it as one can get. So I'm going to read this, and I really do think that this encapsulates everything about kind of the loss that Iowa had against Iowa State. And by the way, of course, this is the game preview. I should have said this at the beginning of the video. Iowa versus Troy. If you're a Troy fan coming across this video, I'm definitely an Iowa Hawkeye fan. But as I always say in the videos, I do my best to remain unbiased when delivering the actual preview of Iowa versus whatever opponent that they have for that particular week. My final thoughts, pen to paper, and then I'm going to move on and we're going to go to the Iowa versus Troy preview. Kirk Ferentz does not deserve all the blame. KF is obviously a legend. However, with all that said, he is unwilling to do what it takes to take Iowa to the next level, consistently being a top 15, 20 program. That's the next level. Kirk Ferentz fluctuates between, and his program fluctuates between 20 and 45, top 20, top 45, top 20, in that range. Iowa is always bordering on average to approaching good at the 20 to 25 range at best. We know this to be the case due to his view of the starting quarterback position. Iowa has the talent to be a playoff caliber team with all the guys that chose to come back. Kirk Ferentz said with regards to his starting quarterback situation and whether it's worthy of giving Brendan Sullivan a look and, at least considering this starting quarterback position. And I pulled this quote from an article from David Eichholt, and I actually thought it was a pretty good article. Honestly, of the two, David and Sean, I think David Eichholt is much better. Just my opinion. I think he is a legitimate Iowa Hawkeye fan and gives as honest an assessment at times, not always, as he can. Sean Bach, I don't think so. But David Eichholt, I think when Iowa struggles, I just want to give a shout out to this. He is willing to say what needs to be said sometimes, which is better than most. I mean, most of the Hawkeye contributors don't say what needs to be said at all. So, anyways, let's get back to this. So he's saying this with regards to Cade McNamara. KF said, probably, quote, probably the way I did coming into the stadium today. Ferentz responded when asked about how he views the starting quarterback. I think we expect Cade to be our quarterback. I expect some ups and downs. I've been saying it pretty consistently, as if we're knuckleheads for asking this question. I expect some ups and downs. I've been saying it pretty consistently. He's still working his way back into shape, as is our whole team with the offense and whatever. Yikes. Wow. His answer to this question is a perfect example of why he is unwilling or incapable of taking Iowa to the next level. Game shape? I'm sorry, not. But if you have a proven Big Ten caliber quarterback in the waiting wings, you must give that quarterback a look. Obviously, Tim Lester deserves critique as well. Maybe Iowa will never be able to. I think they have the resources and support to do so. This was a playoff or bust year for me, or pretty damn close. Now it is highly likely to be off the table. So that's that. Just to wrap this up in a little bow, the reason I decided to continue with this is for you guys, the fans. You guys have supported me, and so it is my duty to, even when Iowa is struggling and not performing the way that I would like for them to perform, to give you guys content and investment on you guys supporting this channel, liking, sharing, subscribing, the whole 9 yards. So here we are. Otherwise, honestly, I probably would not be doing this. All right, let's take a look at Iowa versus Troy here. And I'm going to do my best to say this as positively as possible, as I normally do. ESPN Football Power Index gives Iowa an 84% chance of winning this game, compared to Troy, 16%. Troy comes into the contest 0-2. The game will be on FS1 at 1 p.m., I believe Pacific time. Iowa, of course, is 1-1. Here are the leader stats. G. Crowder is 25 of 37, 237 yards, 1 TD. Cade McNamara, 34 of 60, 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Rushing yards, D. Taylor. Let's see if that's Darius Taylor. Because I know Iowa. No, it's Damian Taylor. Because, yeah, there was a running back in the day that, well, not back in the day, but like a year ago that Iowa was in. I think he landed at Northwestern, perhaps. I'd have to, or Minnesota is where he landed. He has 136 yards, 1 TD. Caleb Johnson, 36 carries, 306 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Let's see. Receiving yards, Jacob Gill, 7 receptions, 93 yards, 1 TD. D. Ross for Troy, 10 receptions, 129 yards, 1 TD. Here are the last 5 contests for each program. This year, Troy has lost to Nevada 28-26 and Memphis 38-17. Iowa beat Illinois State. What the heck? This is crazy. All these dang random pop-ups here. And of course, Iowa lost to Iowa State 20-19. Don't remind me. So there is that. Let's see if they have the betting odds. Iowa is a 22-point favorite. The over and under is 38.5. I do want to compare, just for what it's worth, and trying to do my best to provide a slightly positive tilt to this. I have said, even though Iowa is 1-1 and their loss to Iowa State was inexcusable, it was disgusting, and I cannot stand how they lost at home. Make no mistake about that. And yes, Kirk Ferentz coming back and all of that is just, yeah, terrible. But I have seen improvement from the Iowa offense for what it's worth. I've also seen the defense not perform as well as I would have. I mean, I thought that this Iowa defense might be the best defense in the history of Phil Parker in Kirk Ferentz's tenure. And when push came to shove, they did not get the necessary stops. Now, it's a lot to ask. I totally understand that, of a mediocre Iowa State offense. Now, I did say in the game preview, though, that the only way Iowa State, because they almost did it last year, was going to be able to beat Iowa was if Rocco Becht, who is a slightly above average quarterback, and we've seen in past, the only way that Iowa State usually defeats Iowa is if their quarterback is able to have an out of his mind game or close to it comparatively to his skill level and talent. And then specifically for this Iowa State team is if their wide receiver, as what happened last year, is able to go off and slice up this Iowa defense. And that is exactly what happened. I know this Iowa team too well. I predicted it. I was spot on. And I hate to say it, but Phil Parker's defense struggles against mobile quarterbacks who don't beat themselves and make mistakes and give the ball to the defense, because Iowa's defense at their core is a defense that keeps everything in front of them, a bend but don't break majority zone coverage unit scheme. But they also struggle with wide receivers who are above average to good to elite and have the ability to carve up a zone scheme. And that's exactly what happened. But with that said, we have seen slightly improved stats from the Iowa offense. I want to show you guys Iowa's first 2 games last year. Last year, they defeated Utah State in the first game of the season, 24-14. And they had 284 total yards. Rushing yards, 88, 196 passing yards. We're also going to be looking at the team stats later on. And then they defeated Iowa State 20-13. This game literally came down to the last drive. Iowa State was knocking on the door, nearly tying the game up. It was like an exact same game where Iowa is doing much better in the first half, and they were playing not to lose. This one, they were able to ride it out to victory, but the one this year, of course, they were not. The team stats. Well, actually, let's go back and look at Cade McNamara's terrible performance last year, too. 12 of 22, 123 yards, 1 INT. Rocco Becht, 23 of 44, 203 yards, 1 TD, and 1 INT. Team stats, Iowa, 235 yards overall, 123 pass, 112 rush. So let's look at this year, the last 2 games that Iowa has had. And then, of course, Western Michigan. Iowa did have a much bigger performance, but a lot of that was on the shoulders of the defense when they defeated Western Mich 41-10. So this year, Illinois State, he had the 21 of 31, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, 492 total yards, passing yards 251, rush yards 241. You can't get much more balanced than that. 23 first downs. And then against Iowa State yesterday, he was 13 of 29, 99 yards, worse than he was last year, 2 INTs. And a lot of people want to say that Iowa State has this really good defense. Listen, they're not bad. Okay. But they're not elite either. They're not so good to where Iowa can barely have 100 yards passing. I mean, come on. There's Rocco Becht's numbers, obviously. 303 total yards, again, more than last year. I know by a few yards. And most of that was on the shoulders of the 204 rush yards. But again, that is improvement. For what it's worth, it is improvement. And I think you would agree, and I would agree, that at the core of Iowa's offense, they need to be able to run the football. And so this is a positive step. Iowa has obviously been able, 2 back-to-back games where they have been able to have 200 yards rushing. That is definitely a marked improvement. So there's that. I just wanted to say that for what it's worth. Let's take a look at the team stats for this year. I almost didn't do the team stats because we're only 2 games into the season, but I'm going to do it anyways. Troy is coming into this season, or to this game, 104th in total offense. They are averaging 321 yards a game. Surprisingly, Iowa is finally on the second page, mostly on the shoulders of the run game and their first game performance. They are 68th, which is actually not bad. That's nearly average. And I said all last year, if Iowa could just be top 75, they would be unbeatable. But again, it's only 2 games into the season. So them being 68th is not the same as being 6 or 7 games into the season and being top 70. We'll talk when Iowa has at least played 5 games and see where they're at. Okay. And again, a lot of this ranking is on the shoulders of their performance against Illinois State. The last stat we're going to look at, we'll go ahead and take a look at scoring defense. Iowa State is 30th, so they actually might be better than Iowa. Wow, is Iowa not? No, Iowa's 24th and Iowa State is 30th. So again, not where this Iowa defense should be. And Troy, I can almost guarantee, is second or third page. And then we'll look at total defense. Let's see if we can find Troy here. Michigan 70th. They got smoked. A lot of you guys have been asking, where is my Big Ten whip around show? I just don't have a lot of time or as much time to be able to do that this year. Um, I am going to try and start doing it by week 3 after we get out of the preseason and after there is enough sample size to really gauge the teams in the Big Ten, because a lot of the Big Ten Whip Around show is the power rankings. And I don't want to give you guys BS when we're only 2 games into the season and there's not really a ton there to, I mean, even 3 games into the season is not really a lot, but it's enough to give at least some indication. So I may start it next week, maybe week 4. Um, Not seeing Troy week or page 2 here. Wow. Man, are they are they not even on the charts here? Jeez. So here they are, number 114 in total defense. So this is, and they haven't played monstrous opponents. Iowa's going to be the best opponent that they have faced. This is going to be a good game for Iowa to continue to iron out their clinks. Okay. Now, I said that Iowa State was going to be their legitimate test of where the offense is at, and they definitely failed in most of it, aside from the run game, which is definitely a big part of it. But overall, I would say they failed, as they were terrible in the red zone. Um, and because that's the biggest thing, you have to be able to punch it in and make the opponent pay for their mistakes. But I don't love Iowa playing Iowa State every year. I think that they should do a year on, year off uh schedule where one year they play Iowa State, the following year they play a team from the ACC like a North Carolina, or a team from the SEC like a Vanderbilt or something like that. They don't have to go out and play Georgia or Alabama, but it'd be nice to have some variability within the schedule. So total defense, Iowa is 43rd. Again, they would much rather be elsewhere, I'm sure, but there you have it. Lastly, I'm going to show you guys the depth chart for the Iowa Hawkeyes here. So here, Iowa's depth chart. You guys can pause it and check it out. I'm not going to stay on it too long. I want to get to the end and kind of give my final thoughts to wrap this video up. We'll take a look at Troy as well here. All these websites have about 1 million different pop-ups. It's absolutely it's ridiculous. Every single time I do these videos, I say that to you guys. All right, here is Troy. And again, you guys can pause it. Here is their depth chart. And you guys can pause it. All right, let's skip to the end here. And here are my closing thoughts on the Iowa Hawkeyes. As you guys know, again, the game against Iowa State was absolutely disappointing. I'm still disheveled from that loss. It's hard for me to emotionally give you guys the same positive Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube vibes, but I'm doing my best. The things that I question versus Iowa State, and this is classic Iowa football, which is, where was Reese Vanderzee? The dude has a massive game. He's number 1 on the depth chart. Iowa can't find a way to get him the ball. Caleb Brown is back from his 1-game suspension. He goes all last year being the number 1 receiver. Now all of a sudden he's nowhere to be found. I mean, is Iowa continuing this suspension? I mean, where are we at? Was it really worth it to do it against the Iowa State opponent to not have? I mean, I don't even know if he played. I mean, I can't find any evidence that Caleb Brown played. Entringer, a lot of you guys may not be aware of this. He replaced Xavier Wanpa, who had a blown coverage for a 70-plus yard touchdown. Now, after the game, Jay Higgins took responsibility for that. Take that for what it is. But there are a lot of things that this Iowa team needs to sort out. I mean, it's as much as I would like to blame it solely on the offense, it's not just them, because the Iowa defense was not where they would like to be and need to be in order for this Iowa team to truly be great. Even if the Iowa offense improves, this Iowa defense is gonna need to be elite, as they always are. So, yes, Iowa has taken 2 steps back, and yes, there is massive disappointment. It's hard to look forward and be excited. There is even less room for error now that Iowa has lost to Iowa State. In the end, though, outside of the college football playoff, which, yes, is a big deal considering a lot of Iowa fans, including myself, had that hope and expectation, the Iowa State game plays very little relevance on the Iowa Hawkeyes season as a whole. This loss makes every game from henceforth that much more important. The game against Ohio State, the game against Wisconsin. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But crazier things have happened. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that Iowa has not found a way to win football games after suffering from a terrible loss. But they've also not been able to rally. Sometimes some of the things that we see early in the season are indeed season-long issues. So we'll see if improvement is made against Troy. It's going to be hard to judge how much of it is fool's gold because of the drop down in the level of competition. But nonetheless, I'm picking Iowa to win this game 28-10. I hope that Iowa can get above 30 points. I really do. But until Iowa is able to show me consistently that they can score the football, and until this defense, again, lives up to what the defenses that we've seen in years past, I'm going to err on the side of giving more points for the defense and less points for the Iowa offense. If I have the same preseason expectations for this defense that right this second, I could see them holding Troy to fewer than 10 points. But at this point, they have a lot of issues, and they have less issues than the Iowa offense, but they have issues nonetheless. I am very interested to see what happens with the Xavier Wanpa situation, because, this guy has come to Iowa as a 5-star prospect. And yeah, he came to Iowa head and shoulders above the rest of the freshman class. And the kind of colloquial thought was, well, if Phil Parker's able to do this with 2-star guys, what will he be able to do with a guy like Xavier Wanpa, who has all the talent and skill in the world? But that emergence and that development, we haven't really seen him break through yet. We've kind of seen Xavier Wanpa just kind of be average. And I am hoping to see him become the player that he's capable of being due to the God-given gifts that this guy has. So we'll see what happens with that. Stay tuned for more content. I think I'm going to be dropping a key takeaways video, although a lot of it I have already said. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to smash that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. We'll see you guys next time. Last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts are feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.